really
right.
talk about anything.
Right,
Uh,
right. We're good though.
It's recording?
Yeah.
All right. Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Mind Abyss podcast. I am Phi.
What's going on, guys? Mark, and this is the Mind Abyss podcast, where the plan is to dive deep into the mind. And today we have a guest, my friend Quantum Kitty, fellow YouTuber, fellow Psychonaut. Yeah.
We were just on the topic of lucid dreaming, and she was talking about dream yoga, which is very interesting to me. Also sad to me. I'll say why, because she was just explaining how she had to, well, she didn't have to, but she did quit smoking weed to be able to have these experiences better. And I have some very amazing dreams, but I don't always remember them so well. So I'm the whole time you were explaining that, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, man, that might be something I really have to give up or maybe indulge in just every once in a while, like on a weekend or something, because my dreams are very, very interesting. I just have such a hard time remembering them.
yeah, absolutely. And listen, I love smoking weed. Like, that's my favorite thing to do. I'm an artist, and I get my ideas from, those shamanic spaces. But once you use your dream space as a shamanic tool, I find that I get high in my dreams, like I'm having a really good time in my dreams. I'm doing acid in my dreams. I'm doing ayahuasca in my dreams. I'm dying in my dreams. So I'm also understanding cultural experiences and social issues. A lot of my dreams recently have been about classism, sexism, any type of ism, any type of separation. That is really dark, a lot of really dark topics. And it's really been showing me all aspects of the human experience and human perception, really. A lot of stuff to do with classism and elitism and stuff like this. It's really funny. I had an experience where we were all playing this game. This is why I've been very vocal about collaboration, not competition, because I find the way humans have been doing things for thousands of years is by competing with one another. And we've come to this apex of understanding and information where we don't have to do that. And I find that a lot of people don't want to collaborate with each other or keep information from each other is because of living in lack and being in this competitive state of being, which is basically putting ourselves against one another in order to make it. Because at the end of the day, we all need to survive, and we all need to make money. So if our livelihood is at stake and we only feel that only a certain percentage of us can make it, then of course we're going to be negative to one another. So my dream was, and I think it's an allegory for life. I was playing this game with a whole bunch of people. And this is actually a dream I had a few days ago. And I guess it's an allegory for life. And we were all playing this game, and we either had to choose to be loving and kind and help one another and collaborate and give each other information and give each other resources, or we could choose to just keep everything to ourselves and to keep everything for ourselves and hurt one another and compete with one another in order to make it. And the majority of people chose that. And I think that's what life is now and why we are in this state of competition versus collaboration. So I think that dream was very eye-opening, and it's something that I've been meditating on and ruminating on for a really long time. And it's something that had bothered me getting into social media, getting into, the YouTube game, getting into everything and seeing everybody talk about, you know, love and light, but not seeing a lot of collaboration, you know.
Right.
Yeah, so I think that's why I feel so strongly about sharing all the knowledge that I have, because I would never, or I don't feel the need to hide anything. The only reason why you don't share information is if you realize that that person will not understand that information. That's all. I do talk with a lot of, I go to a lot of, you know, festivals and raves and parties and stuff like this from time to time when I'm not doing my work, when I'm not meditating. But I hear the same thing, and it's just these people that are like, "Oh, don't show if an entity contacts you, you know, don't share that information." Why? Why? And I asked them why, and they were like, "Well, because the you know, the DMT gods or the mushroom gods or whatever, they don't want you to share that information." I'm like, "Says who?"
They wouldn't give it to us if they didn't want us to share it. I feel like it's there for everybody to indulge in if they want to indulge and learn.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I feel. And I just find that just again living in lack, you know, and I feel that to change this paradigm, we have to change our way of thinking, and we have to change our way of sharing. So, that's really important to me now. I find that there's a fear because people don't want to be perceived as crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
I'd have to agree because when I first started doing psychedelics, and I have like these weird little visions in my head. I don't really know how to describe them except for it's like I'm watching something on a TV in my mind. And when I first started having like these little visions, I didn't know how to interpret them. And I was afraid to be called crazy at first until I actually came across other people that were talking about similar ideas. And then, you know, from there I had to break free from that and just say to myself, like, the information you're coming across, I don't want to say true because truth is subjective, but how can so many people across the globe, when you begin to talk to people online, be experiencing similar things if it's all, you know, not real or just a drug that's making you feel this? How do we all come across the same ideas and the same concepts? And I've even had someone say to me, you know, you need to be careful talking about psychedelic things. And I'm like, well, I feel like if anything, psychedelics need to be talked about mainstream. They need to be brought into a new light where people are no longer misled by all the false information about them. I feel like they could do some very positive things for the planet. And if we don't talk about them or try to get the ideas out there, people won't ever learn or they won't understand, you know, the capabilities these tools have if used properly.
Right. And for me, it's like I've learned to just, in the beginning, obviously, I kind of had that slight, like, what are people going to think about me? What are my friends going to think about me? What is my family going to think about me? But like over the years of like being on the psychedelic path, it's just, I've learned to just really not care, not give a fuck, but with empathy. Because not when you not give a fuck, it sounds very lack of empathy. But it's like just not really caring, just being myself, being my true authentic self. And I feel like this is the true authentic self. You know, we have this capability to dive deep into our mind. And I agree where it's like, there's so many people that have met these different light beings, these different entities in DMT space. And it's like, there's almost too many of us for it to not be, I don't want to say real, but for it not to be real, I guess, you know, there's just too many things, too many people that are speaking the similar experiences that don't know each other. And then, like, honestly, when I met you, when I met a few other YouTubers and a few other people started diving deep into the YouTube world, I felt a little better because what I've noticed is different social media sites have like different type of crowds, different type of people that are in these things. So you can be on Facebook in a psychedelic group or on YouTube in a bunch of psychedelic people. It'll be almost completely different type of people. A lot of the YouTubers tend to be more serious about the path because it takes a certain level of seriousness to be able to make videos about it, to be able to put your face out there and talk about it and have your face out there when you're talking about these things as well. And I do think, and I agree with you that we all need to start connecting more, because it's almost like we have all this knowledge. It's like all the information is out there. It's all spread out between all of us. And it's like one person will never know it all. So it's like the only way we can get to knowing something and really becoming what we truly are, I feel like, is together, connected as the collective. And I think that's like steps like this, just having like conversations like this, and like these are steps that need to be made, that need to be taken to really make an impact. But
Yeah.
Absolutely. There was one thing I wanted to add when you were talking about people experiencing similar things, like the last trip we went on together with LSD, where we were calling it, the isness when we were in it. I've never broken through on DMT. I've had some very interesting experiences, but I've never had that big breakthrough. I don't know if maybe the beings aren't allowing me through, or if it's just part of my own shamanic journey, because subconsciously death has been one of my biggest fears my whole life. And it's like, maybe I have to face that before even being allowed through. But from what I've been told, there's a certain language that these light beings speak. And while we were in the isness experience, while I was just completely dancing around, tranced out, I was speaking in this language. And upon coming down, Mark told me that it's the exact same language the light beings speak. And I thought it was very interesting because I'd never had a DMT breakthrough, but yet I was speaking that language so perfectly and so fluidly, which is interesting too, that it's a different chemical that's making me experience something similar as well. Right. Which is why, like, I don't like to just say like one psychedelic. I really feel like psychedelics are the answer to awakening the planet in general.
Well, the first time I had done DMT, I had about 1 gram of DMT by my bedside. And honestly, I don't even know how much I did. That's how much I did. And I kept unpacking the bowl, and I didn't have a scale. I didn't know how much I was doing. I told this to Rock Zulu in a podcast. And it was just 1 gram, and I was just digging and pouring more, digging and pouring more. And I think it was my ignorance, that allowed me to go that deep, because I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what I was going to see. And I didn't know how it would not only change my DNA, but change my neuroplasticity as well. And by half the bag, finally I had, when you hear that crackling.
Yeah.
Yeah. You hear that crackling, and my third eye had been activated, and that experience, the first entity that I did meet on DMT, I believe was Source, God, whatever you want to call it, Creator, or maybe an angel, I don't know, but it was formless, shapeless, and it was right next to my bed. And I just remember it being very comforting and very holy, religious, like something that I've never experienced in church or in a mosque or in a temple or any of that. And I knew that this is what, Jesus and Muhammad and Buddha and, all of them were talking about. This was the entity that they had met. Like, that's how extreme I went. And with every single DMT trip, I almost felt like it was dipping my toes into the water, getting a little deeper and a little deeper, until until the veil had been lifted, like literally a veil was lifted. And I had my first, I would like to call, occult initiation into the mystery school of hyperspace, where
I like how you described that.
well, it was because I saw the tree of life, or the Kabbalistic tree of life. You know, I don't know this stuff. This was in the beginning. This was right before I had done, or right before I started doing my YouTube channel, and I didn't know anything about this. And it's why to this day I paint geometry, because of what I see. You know, it's what I saw there. And it was my first out of body experience. And I had what people call Satori. And Satori is actually, there's a lot of documentation about Satori experiences in the Holocaust, where people thought they were going to die. So they had this experience, and a lot of them lived to tell because they didn't die. So, you know, they were in a very extreme situation, a situation that was, it induced a lot of the chemicals that you feel when you are in fear or when you're being really stressed out. And that's the same chemical that is also released in psychedelics. So a lot of them had talked about this experience of feeling that there was deja vu, and every single moment in their life was important and had led up to that moment of Satori, right before death. And I had experienced that right before I popped out of my body, and I saw the tree of life, or the Kabbalistic tree of life, in liquid gold. It was going through all these sephiroths, or all the points, and I was, oh, you know, this experience. I was unplugged out in the matrix, like unplugged, like at the back of the head, because our consciousness, yes, it is here in 3D, but it's also in another place, in another dimension. And again, all dimensions are connected, and all dimensions are within us. They are not exterior.
Right.
Not in another place. I believe that they are within the chakras. Yeah.
That's interesting.
I haven't heard anybody say that before.
Yeah.
They're energy centers. They're stargates.
I've actually got a picture on my phone saved. It's similar like that. It has like a picture of these different like stargates throughout like the universe and their names and how it matches up with that Kabbalistic tree of life where each like stargate is. And I believe I'd have to dig through my phone to find the picture, but I think there was like 7 points going up it.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, this was all intuitive, and I know this sounds crazy to normal people, to the normies, but psychonauts, we all know that we are dealing with magic. And when I was a teenager, I used to get in trouble a lot because I was always with like my magic book and like trying to know magic and trying to practice magic, and my mom would always burn them and throw my Ouija boards away. Which she had a good point about the Ouija board. I don't trust it at all. But I always knew that magic was real.
Yeah.
I didn't know that magic was within us.
Right. No, I agree. I almost think that I do agree. What we're doing is magical, but magic is almost just an undiscovered science. It's just an undiscovered part of reality.
Well, the reason why I started doing my YouTube channel is because I didn't see anybody else on YouTube talking about binary systems and binary language.
Right.
I didn't see anybody talking about it. And, you know, as a person that has gone really far in psychedelics to the point where I saw the future, I saw what I was here for, I I lost my mind in psychosis for 6 months.
No, if you don't mind, because I wanted to ask you a couple of questions, and that was honestly one of them. Can you go a little more detail on how was that? What was that like?
Oh gosh, all right, let's talk about this. The isness, you guys talk about the psychosis. So that was after my last DMT trip, and it's why I can't do DMT anymore for now. Like, if I ever stop having my third eye, like the use of it, then obviously I'll take more DMT. But the last time it happened, actually, the psychosis was a few months ago, and it was after taking 7 drops of Ormus. And that was really difficult. I got cocky, and I thought that I was like, I'm Quantum Kitty, I can do anything. And when you get a big head, it kind of kicks your ass. And
Yep.
that was hard. It was really hard. The last time I had done DMT and had psychosis. Okay, so what had happened was I was in psychosis for like 6 months. That's why I started my YouTube channel. I think that's why I was able to put everything out there, because I was just so crazy. I didn't care. Like, I had no sense of, shame or judgment to myself. I didn't think people were going to judge me. I didn't think I was crazy. I was really crazy. And what had happened was that was after the experience where I popped out of my body and I saw the Kabbalistic tree of life, and I was basically plugged out of the matrix, and it scared me so bad, because I was going into this black hole, or what I believed to be a black hole. Kind of looked like this Stargate with runes, the Nordic runes on it, and I was going into the singularity, and I was about to die, and I had to hold myself back, and I was just like, no, this isn't going to happen. And the psychosis didn't happen then. It didn't happen exactly after the DMT treatment. Yes, I saw everything as myself. That's why I call everybody reflections, because I literally saw myself, or source, not myself, but source energy within everything and every single living thing. So if subatomically we are made of the same stuff, the same particles, which is sacred geometry, then technically we are all the same thing. And the psychosis was onset actually while I was on DMT Nexus. And it was a few days after my DMT experience. And for some reason, everything started talking to me. And it was like full on schizophrenic, like experience of my TV talking to me, my computer talking to me, the table talking to me, everything. And I was just like, oh shit. And this was after DMT. I think there was something in my body still residual. This was days after. And I had to make a choice. And I was like, am I going to spend the rest of my life in an institution or a mental hospital or something? And I'm like, fuck this shit. No. And I centered myself, and I think God, I know how to meditate, because that really saved me. It was the only thing. That was the only thing, or else I would have lost my mind. Like, I did lose my mind for a split second. And I find that happens when you're being deprogrammed, or stepping outside of the matrix, or leveling up in consciousness, if you will. There is this little, blip that happens, and your mind flips for a second, and you have to center yourself, or else, this is no joke. This is why I don't say this path is for everyone.
Right.
Absolutely
Yeah.
agreed.
I agree too.
Well, I was just watching a episode, podcast, Joe Rogan Experience. His guest was Hamilton from Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia, and that's one of the things he was saying. You know, he had a friend that took a high dose once, and it ended up kind of sending him into a psychosis, and he kind of never came out of it. I always try to preach harm reduction with anyone going into these things, and anyone that's interested in trying them. I always try to tell them, know yourself, know your mind, and just know that it's all in your mind while you're in there. My wife and I have had plenty of experiences where we've been overwhelmed. That ISNIS trip we had earlier this year, I was so confused coming out of that trip because I had gone so deep. Coming back down was a little confusing because the other times I had gone that deep, I had been pulled out of it by either somebody force feeding me Xanax or the hospitals giving me Ativan against my will. So this experience was actually unique because I was able to come down and make sense of it. Within 15 minutes, I was able to start making sense of things that were going on, what we were talking about, what was happening, where I feel like I went into, I don't know if I'd consider it a psychosis, but it was a really weird state of mind. The 2 times I had been picked up and taken to the hospital by police, both times for me being irresponsible, which I always try to preach on my YouTube channel. I've been irresponsible, so you guys don't have to listen to my stories. Don't make the same mistakes. But I took 1,200 micrograms one day when I was 23 back in 2013. And didn't have a babysitter. My wife took 900 micrograms, and I ended up leaving the house and walking around the city. And I was in some other place having the time of my life, but the police ended up getting called, and they had to take me to the hospital because I was a danger to myself, because I was just walking across the street, not paying attention to traffic. I could have easily been hit by a car. But I was very upset because even going into the hospital, I told them, please don't give me anything, both times. Like, let me just ride it out and come down. I'm not having a bad trip. I'm going through something. I need to understand what it is. And the state of confusion that I was in for weeks after both of these experiences, being given Ativan, it's almost like, imagine like you're exiting the Matrix and then something sucks you back in and you get like extremely confused. And both times it was for weeks or months before I was able to actually, I feel like, shake out of that state. Cause it's like you're going through something, but when they give you that to pull you out of it, it almost like wipes your memory of everything you were going through, which is why, like, I'm going to preach it again, and I get a lot of shit in the YouTube or on the Facebook groups. Don't suggest Xanax for people having a bad trip or to help them come down. Please don't. Don't suggest benzodiazepines. And I know other people will give me shit for saying this right now, but please, that's bad advice. There's better ways to deal with a bad trip.
I've had 2 experiences with psychosis. Nowhere near lasted as long as like 6 months, but I only had one that lasted a month, and it was from DMT. I don't know, I can't say necessarily that it was from DMT, but at the same time, this is at the time where I wasn't doing anything else but DMT. And it is this ignorance of not knowing what it is what helped me push the DMT experience farther, because I was so ignorant about what I was doing. I had no clue. Like, yeah, I listened to Terrence McKenna. Yeah, I listened to some YouTubers, but it's like, you still really don't really know what you're really getting yourself into.
That was the same when I dropped the 1,200 micrograms. I had no idea.
You really don't know. But like, so I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. And then I ended up having this experience where I had a psychosis for a month, where I had white walls in my kitchen. The white walls constantly looked like a colorful TV fuzz, always. Like it never looked white anymore. So the walls would breathe. Smoking cannabis would make it like way worse. The walls would breathe even worse. I'd get that weird, sometimes like psychedelics can give you like this weird anxiety feeling. Like anxiety is kind of a misinterpretation, but it's kind of like anxiety, just this weird feeling. And it's like, I got that weird feeling every time I would smoke cannabis, every time. And it took me not using DMT for 2 months for me to kind of get back down to baseline and being able to smoke cannabis and enjoy it. Instead, like, it was like I would smoke cannabis and I would just trip balls. And so I didn't really want to smoke that much anymore. But that only lasted for like a month. And, and I just did DMT for the first time in 2 years, like a week ago. And it was the first experience I've had. I did a light dose, kind of a light dose. I guess I just wanted to dip my toes in because I almost felt like I was falling away from it. It's almost like
You needed a reminder.
yeah. It's like I was just 2 years was like too long, and I was just falling away from it, and I was almost forgetting. And then when you get there, it's like, how could you forget this? How could you forget this exists? Like,
There's a lot of distractions in life.
yeah.
You see, that is the only reason why I would ever take DMT is if I ever forgot. But there's no way I can. Apparently, I experience weird shit all the time. But talking about the psychosis thing, I think we have to really lose our minds to finally get in touch with reality and who we really are.
I've said that to my wife plenty of times. I said, sometimes you got to lose your mind to really find it.
Yeah, exactly. Especially living in this world of psychosis.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like one really could almost argue that a lot of the world is actually living in a psychosis, and those who have done psychedelics are the ones that are outside of that psychosis and actually normal again.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I feel like, and it's not that like I want to talk bad about human beings or make it seem like my point of view is right or wrong or better, but it's like I look around the world and I'm like, what the fuck is going on, and how did we ever let it get to this point? Like, what happened to where we got to the point of blowing each other up with atomic bombs and killing each other and having genocides? Like, what happened?
Right, because I always think where it's like, if we have the technology to split an atom, the first thing humans think is let's blow each other up.
Right. To me, that's psychotic. That's a psychosis. Like, that's just not okay.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. We should be thinking of free energy. We should be thinking of feeding people. We should be thinking of, health care for everyone and school for everyone. And yeah, we have our priorities all fucked up, and we're living in this illusory world where we're all about the body and a slave to the five senses, and why we have a lot of addiction. It's everybody's trying to escape because we've created a sick world and exploitation rules.
Right.
Yeah. But I think that with the psychedelics, we are having new ideas, new artwork, new podcasts. Somebody told me, they said, thank you, you produce the best psychedelic TV. And I'm like, oh shit, I never even thought about it that way. But like, who creates media for psychonauts? Psychonauts.
Right. Yeah.
And I feel like even very few psychonauts even create that kind of content. Like, I myself don't even make enough YouTube videos because, like I was saying earlier, I'm kind of nervous to be in front of the camera. I've got to get used to that and just get used to talking about my ideas and what I've experienced, and just not really care what other people have to think. That's been a process, and if I start doing it more and more, I know it'll get a lot easier.
I'll tell you something about that because my channel's been recently blowing up. I receive the good and the bad. I receive a lot of hate comments and hate mail from religious people that say that I'm the bad influence. And hey, listen, you know what? Whatever you say, as careful you are with your words, people will always perceive you in the way they perceive themselves. So everybody's going to have an opinion about you. Don't give a fuck.
And it's crazy because they could say the meanest things and it wouldn't get to me. I mean, there's nothing anybody in the world, there's nothing anyone could say that would be worse than what was said to me in the Marine Corps by drill instructors and my higher ups when I would fuck up. So it's like, I don't know why I still have that care. It's just something that I still got to work on.
everybody does. You're only human, like, well, you're not only human, but you are having a human experience. And sometimes we are afraid of being judged. But I think that's why I was really happy that I was in a state of psychosis, because I don't think I would have ever made my YouTube channel. Never. I would have never. I would have had that fear, because I am that type of person that is always in judgment of myself and always self-doubting. And, I do a million videos and I never put them up, like I am that person. And that's something that I have to come. And, it's just the more hate I get, the more I realize that's adding to my watch time.
Absolutely.
That's adding to my engagement. So guess what? All your hate comments just made my engagements go up, made my watch time go up. My videos are monetized. Now I'm getting more money because of you. Thank you.
It's still, they're still consuming the content, right?
That's, I've actually said that to people about, who's that rapper with the rainbow hair?
Oh, Takashi?
Yes, him. So many people hate on him and they'll share his videos laughing at him, but little do they realize every time you click his video or every time you share, you're just helping him bring in more money and get more popular.
Yeah, basically what it is. All publicity is good publicity.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
absolutely.
That's really why I've been trying to upload as much content as possible. Like I like just a month ago, I uploaded every day for a month, and it's like most of those videos, I usually watch my videos over again to make sure they're good, make sure I didn't fuck up, make sure whatever. But it's like lately I've just been trying to trying to create without even looking at it. And I feel like it's almost like the thing where it's like it's more about the quantity instead of the quality, because you'll find quality in just the more quantity you do. And I feel like the more you do things, the easier it becomes. Because when I was used to make my videos, I used to have to edit all my videos because I would fuck up. There'd be points of the video where I'd be like, and just I'd cough, my face would itch or something. But it's like, so I would edit that out. But after 100 videos, 200 videos, 300 videos, now I think I've made 400 videos. It's like by the 400th video, of course, it's much easier to do this. But at the same time, it's like I've had to kind of let go of perfectionism. I've had to let go of trying to make everything I say perfect or everything I say aligned with what everyone else is doing. It's like, this is just aligned with what I am right now in this moment in time. And it's like, and I kind of just let it flow. The worst videos I make are the ones where I'm thinking, because when I flow, usually when I talk, I'm just flowing. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just flowing and I'm in the conversation, kind of like you're in a psychedelic experience.
We were just talking about that before we started the podcast, how I was just over there messing with music. And then just because I was just playing around, I wasn't thinking about it, I started a pretty awesome beat just playing around. Yeah. And those seem to be the easiest ones. It's like when you think about it, it's almost like too complicated. I'll use Bruce Lee's example in the movie Enter the Dragon. He tells the student something about like it's like a finger pointing up at the moon, and he asks the student, "How does that feel?" And the kid says, "Let me think." And he smacks him on the head and says, "Don't think, feel."
Right.
For me, at least, I do videos when I feel called to. I used to be like you, and I used to just do videos and use it almost as like this therapy. But I feel the more attention I got, the more self-conscious I got. And like that'll happen to you too.
For me, I feel like I'm almost working on trying to, because I lost my first channel. So it's like, for me, it's like I feel like I have to like push out that content to build it back up.
I totally get, and you, as you should, everybody has their own path and everybody's experience is equally valid. But for me, once my family members start telling me, "Hey, I'm watching your videos," I'm like, "Oh."
It's like my nephew caught wind that I have a podcast and a YouTube channel, and he's only 10, and he's asking about it. And it's like, when you're 18, You can go watch my channel. Then I'll tell you what it's called, and I'll tell you what the podcast is called. But until then, it's adult content, buddy. I'm sorry.
My grandma just messaged me and she's like, watching your channel. I'm like, oh, oh my God. My sister, my 19-year-old sister, she watches too. So, I recently got that call from my family, and like two people were just like, when you first start, nobody's going to believe in you. Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
Have one person by your side, and it's taken me 2.5 years. I've been doing this, and not one person has said good job. Not one person in my family, not one person has said I'm proud of you. And if you do have that one person that says that, even online, if you have people that's just like, I support you, that's a big deal, because you know what? People, when you first start, and for anybody else that wants to start a podcast, wants to start their own brand, wants to start their own YouTube channel, go for it, and don't care. You have to fake it until you make it. Right. That's just how it is. I mean, be real, be authentic, mm-hmm. Be you. Don't lie about you. But you have to be your number one cheerleader. You have to be your number one supporter. And when you start your own business, when you start your own YouTube channel, if you get one nice comment, you are lucky. Yeah. You're really lucky. And I just felt so lucky. And recently I've seen my numbers go up, and it's intimidating. It's intimidating because now you have, not only people on the internet watching you, but other content creators, other artists, other producers. And you're just like, oh man, now the pressure is really on. But like anybody that's just starting, if you have one person supporting you, be thankful, because man, the internet's not so kind sometimes.
It's a brutal place.
Yeah, but I feel with Psychonauts and our type of content, people are kind.
Yeah. I feel like it's definitely the psychedelics, though. I feel like they push a certain type of, agenda on you.
Exactly. When I first got started, I had so many kind comments that I didn't even think one person would watch. I'm like, what? But yeah. When was your last experience? It was like 2 weeks ago, right? With DMT?
Yeah, it was like a week and a half ago.
So tell me I want to know everything.
Well, so it started with, I just woke up and I was like, I'm going to do this. And so I woke up and I was like, it was the first time I had DMT in forever. It was the nice, beautiful, white, looks like snow DMT. And it was just beautiful. So I was like, all right, this morning, this is the time. So it happened. I smoked it. And then it was almost like the fabric of the universe was like eyes closed on the floor in black. I turned the lights off. I was just, I had a blindfold over my eyes. And it was just like the fabric, almost like there's like a curtain right in front of me. It's on the other side of the computer. It was almost like a fabric coming at me. Fabric, similar sacred geometry patterns, things like that. But in the patterns itself, there were like two beings. And it was almost like this place, it was almost like I was in the beginning stages of DMT. I was getting ready to go past. I had some thoughts in my head that were holding me back, like I was doing it in my mother's house, and my mom didn't really want me smoking DMT in her house. So little tiny thoughts like that kind of held me back from letting go. But as it was coming towards me, and as it started enveloping me, like I started becoming part of it, it's like my feet started vibrating. I started losing sense of my feet, my body, my arms, my whatever. And it was like the bottom of my feet were getting stitched into the fabric of the other dimensions. And I was like, I was becoming part of it. I was becoming it. And if I would have just let go, then it would have, me becoming part of it would have broke through, and I would have broke through, because the fabric was like the veil. That's what it felt like. It was like I was becoming, instead of going through the veil, I was becoming the veil. And And it's like, if I would have just let go of my thoughts and, the thoughts of, oh my, what if my mom finds out I smoked DMT in her house, she's gonna be mad at me, whatever. Like, just little thoughts just like that were like holding me back. So eventually I woke up out of it before the trip even ended, because just that thought of, okay, what if my mom comes in? So like, so I just got up out of it. I looked myself in the mirror, and the craziest visuals you'll ever have. Like, it's so morphing so hard and so fast. Like, my face was just absolutely morphing insane. And as I was just sitting there, I just started thinking to myself, I started getting almost re-downloaded with the information that I feel like I lost. Like, the reason why I did DMT was because I felt like I began to forget about it. I feel like I almost began to become, for lack of a better word, too human. Like, I felt like I was going back to, like, before the psychedelics, the mindset of, where humans aren't that powerful. We're just humans. We're stuck in this, this is just the way that life is. This is just the way it is. And it's like, it almost re-empowered me and made me realize, like, no, it is the way you want it to be. You mold with your thoughts, with what you believe, with what you think every day, with what you do every day, with every action, with everything you consume. And it was just this whole, it wasn't even anything talking to me. It was just like this download of like, oh yeah, ding, oh yeah, I get it. Like, fuck, how could I forget that this is the point? Like, but the one thing I've noticed with DMT is every time I use DMT, it takes me away from a business mindset. Because, like, for the past 2 years, I've been trying to do the whole business entrepreneur thing. After that trip, it has been really hard for me to get my mind back on that. And it's like, my mind's in the clouds. I'm back in the clouds.
It's the perspective that you have on business and a businessman. We have to cleanse our perspectives. We have to flip our perspective. And that's why I say the artist's perspective, whether you're a beat producer, whether you're a musician, whether you're a photographer, whether you're a painter, we do what we love. And that is not business to us. That is our passion, and that's the type of mentality I find that we need to have. Because once you do something you love, you do something of value, then you don't think of it as a business. You think of it as a way of life.
Right.
And the human aspect of things, I feel, again, this is the wrong type of thinking, because humans are such beautiful creatures. And maybe if we were better humans, if everybody wasn't trying to be galactic and they were trying to be a better human, maybe we'd have a better freaking place to live and a better place for our kids and more collaboration. And I find that if you know that human beings are attached to these multiple dimensions and humans are powerful and humans come from the stars, then being human wouldn't be such a bad thing.
Right. That's
Absolutely.
real. That's real. That's a great way to look at it.
That's my mindset. I'm still connected to that DMT space. And I don't think I'll ever not be connected. We're all connected all the time. And as long as you have that knowledge, that self-awareness, that even if you took DMT 10, 20 years ago, it's still in you. I still smell DMT sometimes.
I do now. Like, I didn't though. I didn't after for the 2 years, but after that trip, I do now. When I wake up in the morning, it's like I can smell it in a way, taste it. I don't know, feel it like in the lungs. I don't know.
I'll be smelling it soon. I gotta find a good time to do mine. I don't know when I'm gonna do mine. I want to quit smoking cigarettes before I do it, because if I feel like if I can quit smoking cigarettes completely and not have any for several days to a week, and then I smoke the DMT, I'll never want to smoke them again. I recently quit a couple months back and then started smoking casually when friends came by, and I feel like it just put me right down the path of buying packs again. And I feel like even spiritually, smoking cigarettes is like the biggest thing holding me back. I feel like it's like draining me of my energy, and it's just like killing me. It's a slow suicide. If I loved myself, I wouldn't smoke them. So I feel like if I can quit smoking, that's the DMT will be a reward. And maybe finally, though, they'll lift the veil and allow me to come through.
Be careful what you wish for.
Wait, what was that? You were cutting out a little bit.
I said, be careful what you wish for. I remember when the veil lifted and my vision had changed. Like my vision had changed and I saw everything for what it is. The color was more vibrant. I thought, oh shit, my life will never be the same.
I think I'm ready for that. More now than ever in my life. I've been telling Mark for like the last 2 years, really. I feel like LSD has been teaching me how to deal with and navigate through the psychedelic experience. And maybe that's why I haven't come across many other things like ayahuasca or peyote or even breaking through on DMT yet. Because Mark said what I do in the trances is very similar to even the way the beings there dance around and create things. And I feel like the LSD has been my guide to teach me how to deal with these experiences, to navigate them better. And I think that's why I haven't broken through yet. I feel like when I'm ready, I will, and I'll know how to properly navigate it better rather than someone going into it their first time and having to learn over time, which is what I've had to do with LSD. Like I've been getting into these trances for years and I'm just now really beginning to understand what it is. I'd say 2015, I really started becoming aware of the energy cycles, which was actually something I wanted to ask you about. Mark was telling me like why you stopped doing LSD in public places. He said something about you feel like these energy cycles coming and going or going around you. And I just wanted to ask you your interpretation of those and what they make you feel or what they make you want to do.
With LSD, I feel like I am in the cosmos. That's why I don't think about people. Like, I feel like I'm accessing inner space. I don't like to say outer space because it's also inside, you know. And I remember the last time I had done LSD, actually, I was with my partner and he had a psychotic break with LSD. So,
Do you mind me asking what exactly happened on the psychotic break?
yes. So he is a hardcore intellectual, way smarter than I will ever be. I am not that intellectual, but he's into Nietzsche and Deleuze and, you know, all of these very hard to understand concept in physics and very different character. And he was looking into my eyes and all of a sudden he just cracked and I had to pretty much baby him for like 3 months in a relationship. And it's like, okay, don't think too hard. You know when you think too hard and you've just had a psychotic, you know, you think too hard and it hurts. It hurts to think. Yeah, well, I would just tell because I would know. I knew how it was. I knew how it felt, and I know what he was going through. And I told him, I said, you know, I don't want you to go very far in psychedelics. I get very scared, you know, because this is no joke, and you have to be able to meditate. Like that's why I say, you want to go really far, learn to meditate.
Yeah.
And will protect you, I feel, from those spaces of psychosis and craziness and losing it and pull and push with reality and under, you know, like you're literally getting into the realm of just imagination. And for me, every single time I do DMT, it's a straight up physics lesson. You know, the first time I saw particle physics, subatomic particles, and that's why you see them in sacred geometry, because subatomic particle physics is sacred geometry. It's pure geometry. So the first time I saw these subatomic particles that were in little alien heads falling like a school of fish, and they were right inside of me. And you know how Terrence McKenna says that they try to go inside of you?
Yeah.
Well, that's why I resisted. And I'm like, no, but that was showing me that this is what I am made of. And I saw these little alien heads just like in superpositions, and if you think about it, that's exactly what we are made of and how we are made of. We are basically, particles that are vibrating all at the same time in superposition and intangible with each other. So, like, that's basically what I saw. And when I watched, like, Leonard Susskind, the physicist, when he talks about black holes, I'm like, damn it, just do some DMT.
Right, and then you can look at it from a different perspective.
Right, not a very mechanical and mathematical way, but like an actual knowing, like I was in a black hole.
Yeah.
It gets very frustrating seeing these physicists talk about black holes, but not actually understand black holes.
I mean, that's a lot of, like, I feel like science is half, they know the things they can measure, but there's so much of the world that you can't measure. And like, there's same thing with black holes or anything. You can't measure a black hole fully. Like, so I feel like psychedelics are a great way to possibly understand space itself, to understand particles and these things. I mean, they say, I forget his name, something Crick, the guy that discovered the double helix for the DNA. Now now that story goes around everywhere. I'm not sure about how 100% true it is, but I've heard everyone say it. It's everywhere that he's seen it on an LSD experience first, and then he discovered it. And
I could totally see that because again, I went through my DNA. I went through this, the particles that make me, I can definitely see anything scientific or anything in computer sciences. It's all DMT based, really is. It's like technology.
Yeah, it's such an advanced technology. It's an organic technology that is so advanced that, I feel like it's almost like our modern day technology is almost trying to replicate it, from virtual reality to computers to everything. It's almost like that dimension seeping through this one. It's just, I feel like if we're trying to replicate what's really going on, we're all trying to figure out what's going on. Science is doing it from its perspective. The psychonauts are doing it from our perspective. Religion's trying to do it from their perspective. And it's like,
somehow they need to all come together and, like she was saying, collaborate with each other, put the science, the religion, the psychedelic, everything together and try to figure out what exactly is going on.
And put the ego aside, because I think the ego holds us back.
Isn't it just a fractal within a fractal within a fractal? Basically what's going on here.
Pretty much.
Actual reality being a simulation, but we don't really know it. So we're creating other simulations and other artificial intelligence to replicate us. Yeah, it's a fractal within a fractal.
Right.
And it keeps on going on into infinity.
Yeah. Quite possible. Oh, shit.
I like the setup you guys have going on. That's a really cool tapestry.
Thank you. There was actually a different one up this morning, and my wife was so kind to take the old one down and put this one up because she thought it looked better. So, yeah, we appreciate her for doing that. Man, there was something I was going to bring up. I think it was from watching Beyond the Veil recently, about if you split two atoms and send like one to Mars and one here, whatever you do to the one here, the one on Mars will simultaneously do the same thing there. And
superpositions, and that's entanglement.
It really got me thinking about my wife and I's last trip. My wife and I had a really interesting experience on right before September 21st. We couldn't trip on the 21st due to other things, but we tripped right before the 21st on LSD, just took one hit. And we had a very unique experience. It was like having a Tantra experience, except weren't touching. We weren't touching. I was dancing around the room. She was laying on the bed. And at one point, she said while she was laying on the bed, she felt like she was up dancing around the room. And at that same point, she had her eyes closed, but I was holding my arms like this, like I was dancing with somebody in my arms. It was her energy in my arms. It was like anything that was happening to me on the trip, she was feeling, and anything that was happening to her, I was feeling. And like it gets into the whole idea, if people believe in like the twin flame thing, like she's literally like my other half. Like somehow me and her were split up, and now we come back together. And I feel like you can feel this with more than just like your twin flame too. Imagine almost like, imagine before like the Big Bang, we were all like these atoms real close together, like all the people we connect with best in life, we were all atoms like next to each other, and then we shot out over the universe, and like now we're like reconnecting, and those people you vibe with, where am I trying to go with this? Like I see it in my head, I'm having a hard time describing it. It's like me and my wife believe that through people doing LSD together, especially people on the right vibration or with the right mindset, that if people felt what me and her felt, being able to feel each other's energy and connect in that way, I feel like if other human beings are able to feel that, if somehow we're all connected, we can all feel that on a quantum level. And I feel like that experience right there could really change humanity deeply. Like just being able to feel somebody's energy like that and just understand it on that level and understand how you're connected to it. I feel like if people were able to experience that with one another with an open mind, it could really, really change the planet and the course of history. And maybe I'm naive for thinking that, but I wish I could describe in better words than I just did exactly what happened. Me and my wife plan on starting to make more YouTube videos about that experience because it was so unique. But
I mean,
Well, yeah, I mean, that's basically what entanglement is, and that's what explains psychic phenomena. If you are a bunch of particles up in the air, just going like this, you're in this space, then somebody else comes along and their particles are everywhere and they're just shaking around everywhere. What makes you think that those particles and these particles won't touch? Because they're superimposed within the atmosphere and they're bound to touch. So that's what psychic phenomena is. So that's why you feel people's vibes, so like there is definitely something to it. And that's why I call everybody reflections, because you just realize that everybody is just, energy and scale. So it can be positive and negative, and there can't, like the yin and the yang, can't have the positive without the negative. So that's why you feel bad vibes, good vibes. It's all opposite sides of the polarity.
Yeah, it's the duality of the universe. Yeah.
Yeah, and everything is valid, and without one, there can't be the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I completely understand what you and your wife had gone through, because I had experienced that myself with absolutely nobody in the room. And it was just showing me how psychic phenomena can actually happen. And you do feel vibes, you do feel energy before you even see the person. It's why dogs are psychic, and dogs can sense when you're going to give them a treat before you give them a treat. They already know, and they're like already like coming right when you're like reaching for the box. Well, that's the same thing. They have this sense of, they're connected to something. It's their tummies, but they're like, yeah, I already know, and they go running. That's why I know. I call Adina like super psychic.
that's how my dog always knows when I'm about to fuck with him. Like I'll stand up real slow and he just starts looking at me like, what are you about to do?
Yeah, they know they're tapped into this thing that I think a lot of humans really aren't.
Yeah. I feel like it's definitely the thing that we need to reconnect with, because I think with the advancement of the world that's going on, with the advancement of technology, if we don't advance our mind,
we're just going to blow ourselves up or destroy ourselves with the technology if we don't consciously learn how to handle that technology properly.
Yeah.
which I think if we use the technology of psychedelics, we can learn to actually use technology in proper ways that'll better humanity rather than destroy it.
Right, because I feel like it's all the intention. Like, because all these technologies, I mean, they could all benefit the world dramatically, but the issue is usually the people that are in charge of these technologies, their intentions are not, let's better humanity, let's advance the human race to what it could be.
It's more of, how much money can I make off of this?
Right, and that's the issue.
If we somehow came to world peace and took every penny that was spent on military spending in every country, that's trillions and trillions of dollars a year we could spend towards bettering humanity rather than blowing each other up.
Yeah.
That's insane.
It's really insane how almost simple it could be to make the change, but how hard it really is to make the change. It's like the life is a paradox issue. It's because I feel like as easy as it technically is to theoretically think about all the ideas that it would take to actually make that change in the world, whether it's psychedelics, technology, using them for the right reasons, the intentions, it's almost like it's so hard to get other people on that same wave, though, because the people that create these technologies, I mean, that push it out, they almost have the intention, they just want to make money.
Mm-hmm.
It's like money has really held, as much as money is something that we need as a society to live and to feed ourselves and do all that, it's also held back the human race so much because I mean, our healthcare system, the technological world, all of it, money is the reason why they won't actually start working on cures for diseases, because if you get a cure for a disease, then you can't make money off of that disease anymore.
The reason we're not living in Tesla's dream world is because of the greed for money.
Yeah, I mean, Tesla had found a way to get free energy to everyone. And I mean, it's just they stop all that because they don't want to give us free energy. They don't want to give us full health. They don't want to give us the knowledge that we need, the technologies that could help us, be better us. They want us to kind of use them as a crutch, use them as something to rely on. And I think it's the whole system trying to hold itself together. The matrix, the whole system is just, the system itself is trying to do a certain function, and we're all trying to break out of that function.
Yeah. We are all slaves to the system unless you produce your own food on your own land with your own livestock and your own plants.
That's the goals. Hopefully by the time we're like maybe 50, me and my wife can get there.
See, I think
that's the goals.
hoping,
I think we can achieve it before that.
I'm hoping within the next 100 years that humans figure out a way to do this and have all this for free. Like, we shouldn't have to think about food. We should be thinking about the advancement of consciousness and other dimensions, interdimensional travel, and what's really going on in the world. It should be, our basic needs should be something that are already met from the human race working together. I think the only reason why we have to worry about all this is because we're all disconnected. If we were all really connected, we would generally...
I don't think it's a human issue. I think it's the way the system was built. It's not us. We realize that we are all slaves to a system, but we didn't create it. There was somebody that had created institutions. Look at the Vatican. Look at all the religious systems that have people living in the past, that have women being, sexually exploited. Sex tourism, it's all repressed.
Or books that say that blackness on the skin is actually a curse. Mormons came by earlier in the year and they asked me to read through their book, and they stopped coming by right before I was able to ask them these questions. But it was in the second book of Nephi, verse 5, or chapter 5, verse 2, or something like that. Talking about and the Lord did cause a skin of blackness to come upon them for their iniquities or whatever the fancy wording was. And it really got me thinking, that book was brought about right around the time of Jim Crow laws and the slaves being freed. It's like, and there's several verses in there that talk about this curse. And I felt like I would have had a better or an easier time converting them away from their religion than they would have had converting me if they would have came back, but they stopped coming by. But yeah,
We definitely have these institutions that people are so reliant on, and that's what people have learned ever since they were children. And that's why I say that's the mass mind control that we have to think about, the institutions.
mine and his, oh, sorry about that. I was going to say mine and his last podcast was actually about psychedelics and religion. And I feel like a lot of these religious experiences did come from psychoactive plants or psychedelic substances. But then, as you were saying, these people, these institutions got a hold of these experiences and somehow twisted things, manipulated things. It's like they left some of the stories there, but they use it for reasons to control and manipulate people's minds. Like one of the examples I use, like the King James version of the Bible. It's like, okay, obviously this king decided he liked this version the best, and it was a bunch of kings that even voted on what goes in the Bible. And it talks in the Bible about how not to basically revolt against your king, that your king is put there by God. And it's like, it's basically telling people not to kill the kings while the kings are running around killing and disgracing the people and not even coming close to following what the religion teaches. But then the people whose minds are controlled, they're too scared to revolt or do anything because they think the big man in the sky is going to send them to hell for fighting back against a tyrant.
Well, yeah, that's exactly why religions were put into place. And that's exactly what I had to deal with, especially with me being part of all the Abrahamic religions. Now, I am Jewish, Catholic, and Muslim in my family. And when I was, coming out with this, they were like, oh, no, 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 you can't talk about this. You can't talk about this. And when you start talking to people that are highly religious, you see the mind control, because how can you think of anything outside of your own religion? Just like how can you think of something outside of your own race, your own nationality, your own, like people are so separated, and I still dealt with people that were into nationalism when I went to Europe. I'm like, really? Really, you're at a psychedelic festival and you're talking to me about nationalism? What country you rep? Really? We're still talking about this? And I'm like,
I feel like some people don't always get the message. They're not paying attention when they trip.
no, but it was really funny, like people are still really into it. They think that they are their gender. They think that they are their nationality. That's why we have passports, like it's all a system of control. And I think that more and more people are knowing in that and understanding that. But what to do, a lot of celebrities are now talking about mind control recently.
Right.
I found really interesting. They're speaking up. Nick Cannon's talking about it. Roseanne Barr's talking about it. What's his name? Yeezy, Kanye West talking about it. They're all very deeply entrenched in it, but I think it's a state of mind.
Joe Rogan actually was just talking about mind control too on an episode I was watching. I think it might have been an older one though, with Duncan Trussell, I believe, where he was saying he believes people put themselves in this mind control, that there's no evil entity out there that's forcing this mind control upon people, that he thinks it's just, this is the stuff that's out there, and people are actually, by consuming what they do, putting themselves into the state of mind control, which I kind of agreed with a little bit. But I feel like a lot of the people putting out the content know what they're putting out, especially with like music. Like there's certain frequencies in a lot of modern day rap that the frequencies probably shouldn't be there, and I feel like they hit your brain in a certain way and
put you in a trance.
Who actually decided that was sellable? White people.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever hear of the secret hip hop meeting in 1993?
I think I did. Please elaborate because I'd love to hear.
I don't know a whole lot about it. I've only found a little bit of information about it, but it was basically in 1993, all the top music execs, which, not to throw race and anything in there, but pretty much a bunch of white, rich Jewish men got together and decided, okay, how can we change the direction of hip hop? These people are talking about becoming self-conscious, coming together as a community, standing up for yourself and knowing your rights. How can we change the direction of hip hop from being about, getting off the streets to being on the streets? Because they saw how influential hip hop was. So they wanted to make it influential in a negative way, about being on the streets, about selling drugs, doing drugs, all the misogyny that you see in rap music, just all of that. And I feel like, because I've argued with plenty of people online, I grew up listening to hip hop, and I still love hip hop, especially conscious hip hop. And I've argued with plenty of people online that say hip hop's just negative and influential in only a bad way. I'm like, well, you're at least admitting that it's influential then. And if it's influential in a positive way, it can be influential. Or influential, if it's influential in a negative way, it can be influential in a positive way just as well if used properly.
The reason why I talk about mind control, and I don't believe that Joe Rogan is right, because there is something interdimensionally, like intergalactic, that is feeding on the suffering and
That's exactly what I believe too, that it feeds off of all of our negative frequencies and vibrations, and that whatever it is terrified of the vibration of love. It doesn't like the vibration of love, so it does everything it can to keep humans out of that vibration.
And I had also escaped my mind control. And I talk about it in a podcast with Rock Zulu. It was like in your formative years, your formative years, when you're being formatted, you are in a theta state. Okay, so you are in a highly hypnotic, programmable state from the years of 0 to 7. And we are constantly at that time is when you are grabbing all of the information around you, and it's formatting your operating system for the rest of your life. So when we realize this, yes, humans are programmed from birth with religion, with institution, with public school systems, with all of these things. I remember when I was a child, I was in maybe third, fourth grade, and I had a Chinese teacher. She was Miss Young. She was awesome, and I look up to her even today. And I wanted to join the little patrol cop police in the hallway police, the hallway patrol.
Oh, the hall monitors.
Hall monitors, and I had my badge and everything. She grabbed me so fast, and she said, "Oh no, you're not going to be an order follower. And she said, take that badge off. You will not be policing people. That's not how you should be raised. That's not how you should be." And I will never forget that. That really taught me a lot, even as a young person. I always have that in the back of my mind. And I say, thank you, because I would have grown up to be a cop, I would have thought that, policing, order following mentality was normal, and thank goodness she pulled me out of that one.
That was the straight butterfly effect.
Text real quick.
Right?
Because if that didn't happen, that would have sent life on a whole another path.
That's why I still thank Miss Young to this day, because I'm like, wow, she knew what was up. Like,
right. Oh shit!
I just gotta send this out real quick. Apologize for that. Sorry about that. I hate being on my phone when I have company or when I'm talking to anybody. I just had to send out a quick text. I feel like it's extremely rude.
I mean, we all do it though sometimes. I mean,
do you know in the places in any nightclub in Berlin, you cannot have a phone out? They will take something and put a sticker on it. No phones allowed.
I respect that.
That's right.
No pictures and no phones allowed.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, that's why you see I have pictures in Spain, I have pictures in freaking Italy, but I have no pictures in Berlin.
It's where you got to get like one of those spy hats or glasses that has a little camera right here so you can videotape your whole experience.
They watch everything. They watch everybody. So they're like hawks watching if anybody pulls out their phones to take pictures. So
That's why you got
you're
the camera right in the middle of your glasses. You spy shit. So there was another thing I wanted to ask. Have you ever achieved a state on LSD where it felt like you could almost do anything you thought of, that was at least physically possible? My wife and I like to call it the avatar state. It's where you, like you said, how you go into the innerverse on LSD, which I agree with a lot because I've told everyone that I know it takes me in myself and it's like a mirror to my inner world. But I feel like if you get deep enough, there's this spot where you get into such a flow state where like almost anything you want to do just kind of comes naturally. I have a Muay Thai bag that I use for workouts, and there was one time on a deep trip where I hit this state and I was throwing combinations and kicks on this thing that I felt like I normally couldn't do. And then another time when I was flowing around with my flow staff, I was flowing better than I ever had. Like, just, I didn't mess up once. I went for like 2 hours straight just going. And then this most recent trip, while I was up dancing around, I thought it was a beautiful salsa dance. Maybe I looked like an idiot doing it, but it felt like it was perfect. And I've never learned how to salsa dance. And it's just, it was like something I thought of. And then like that energy that I let go of, or that I let go to, it's almost like that energy just took me and did what my body needed to do that dance. And it felt amazing. And I've always wondered if other people have ever gotten into a state like that. And I haven't really talked to anybody else that has. So that was a question I had.
Well, see, I haven't taken LSD that many times. I haven't taken a lot of acid that many times, but the flow state that you talk about, I access that when I do my artwork. A lot of my artwork, like I'll do like a painting, right? And then I will do sacred geometry over the painting. Well, I don't do sacred geometry with pencil. I do it with a pen. So every mark counts, and there's no room for error. There's only perfection, and I can only do it perfectly. No ifs, ands, or buts, because literally, like I'm doing it in marker. So I access those states when I'm doing my artwork, and every single time I put my pen with my compass on, it's the exact perfect thing, and I'm like, oh wow, how am I doing this? Like, to do geometry and to do sacred geometry, you have to erase and do it again and erase and do it again. But for some reason, I land perfectly every single time. So like that's my experience through my artwork. Um, I I access these very DMT, psychedelic, LSD experiences in my everyday life without psychedelics now. So that's why I don't really take psychedelics that much. I just, number one, I can't really handle it, and number two, I'm accessing those spaces without it. So, like I said, when I was at the Sistine Chapel, I had an endogenous DMT release, and I was downloading, the information's galactic information from the cosmos. I was, it was, like when Terence McKenna talks about the dome and the jewels and the beauty and the art of the world, and like seeing everything within a blink of an eye, and just downloading that, and like downloading the human experience, like that's what I experienced there. It was like being timeless, and like being in this timeless space, and really understanding what the human experience was. and embracing it and being so thankful to be able to download this experience, because all, things are within our reality is information, and with our view of perception and our eyes, we are able to absorb this information. So I was just so thankful to be able to absorb the information, because they do that. And Rakazulu had told me this, they had encoded sacred geometry within it, and Fibonacci and the spiral and all of this stuff, because they didn't want to die. They didn't want to be thrown at the gallows for having this highly occulted information. So they had to encode it within artwork. And that's basically, I'm no Michelangelo, but like I'm not.
So this randomly happened just while you were looking at where you were just staring at it, and it just hit you.
Yeah, the one where it's like it's the brain.
Yeah, the one that looks like a brain, but it's all the people, but it looks like
like the brain, and God is touching.
Yeah.
That's basically what I saw, and all of a sudden, like, I was shaking, and I was just like, and it's like it takes your breath away, and when you go into the Vatican, which I highly suggest anybody, because of how those motherfuckers have the most artwork, and when you go in there, you're like, oh really, this is Catholic art? No, this isn't. This is Egyptian art and Sumerian art and Aztec art. You know what I mean? It's all highly occulted, highly esoteric information that the normal person just going by doesn't really understand. But somebody like me or you that would be going into these, places, we're like, whoa, like there's a lot of information. They had they had from all, you basically could see how much power the Vatican had just by the amount of ancient artwork. They had more artwork than the Metropolitan, in every single museum that I've ever been to, combined under one roof.
Wow.
That's how much artwork. That's how many billions and trillions. And that's just what they show you. They have a whole entire vault downstairs that the woman that was, we were staying in her house in Rome, she was telling me a family friend is a curator at the Vatican. They don't put their most prized possessions up for you to view. They have a whole entire vault full of things that you could never imagine, books that are priceless.
Oh, I'd love to get into that Vatican library and just see what's in there. What information that they've stolen from what cultures, and just I'm sure there's a lot of truths locked away in there.
Yeah, a bunch of collective truths. They probably just have all this collective knowledge.
Yeah. And when I just looked up, and it made me realize it was again, that DMT feel where you're just like, oh man, I'm here for a reason. I'm experiencing this for a reason. This is all aligning, and it just catapults you in this very psychic experience where you're just so grateful and thankful. And it's just when you see those alien artifacts in DMT space, and it's just you're just coming at you, and you're just oh shit.
Yeah.
I feel like the only thing I can relate to that experience myself was last year. My wife and I traveled down to South Carolina to see the solar eclipse, and it was absolutely beautiful for that 2 minutes and 15 seconds of totality. And right as it started reaching totality, I felt like I was coming up on LSD or some other psychedelic, and it's the whole time it was at totality was being on a trip. The human experience made sense to me. I was grateful that I was even there to see it. It brought a tear to both my eye and my wife's eye. And I guess the the only time that I've ever felt that deeply, completely sober. There's been other experiences where, you know, I call it like getting the psychedelic chills, but not like going into the deep state. Like there's a lot of times I get into music and I'll be doing something and I'll get those chills, or if I'm listening to certain music that sparks a memory or something. But like, when that eclipse was at totality, like it was exactly how I feel when I'm in those LSD trances. Like everything was just beautiful. I had such an appreciation for everything, and in that moment, because we almost missed it. We originally went to Charleston and the weather was real bad. So I felt like a weather tracker trying to, instead of chase a storm, run away from the storm. So we found this little town called Manning that was a real small population, and the weather was supposed to be good, and we made it there to see it. So it was like that just added to the appreciation of everything too.
Yeah, absolutely. I just took a picture for my Instagram story
Awesome.
to let everybody know. Yeah, but that's why I don't really take psychedelics. I don't need to be pushed into those psychedelic spaces anymore, because like it's easy to trigger me. Like it's super easy to
I feel like once the valve is open, it's like, that's why I didn't do DMT for 2 years, because I was like, I feel like it was just too open, and it's just, yeah.
Yeah. And also talking about the eclipse, I always see the sun and the moon in my third eye visions. Always during the cycle. So during a full moon, the full week before the full moon, I will see beautiful visions of the moon, the full moon, and I'll have visions of the sun as well. So astrology, that stuff is like that rules us pretty much, you know. And the sun and the moon again represents that duality, and it does carry a lot of information.
But I know you probably gotta.
What's up?
I don't know how much time you got, bro.
I got some folks that were stopping by at 5:30.
Okay.
So I don't know what time it is now.
35 if you want to. You got what you guys needed.
Yeah. It's been really dope. It's always a dope conversation, though.
Yep.
It's just the norm now.
It's very refreshing talking to other people in the psychedelic community, especially where I can just speak to, because sometimes it's hard typing whole stories to somebody online. It's much easier to just speak, but there's so few people around here that we can talk to about the experiences. So it's like I'm trying to get over my stranger anxiety and anxiety of other humans, and actually reach out to other psychedelic YouTubers and start connecting with them. I feel like if I start making more videos too, that'll help.
Yeah.
So
listen, I've been doing videos for 2 years, and you can see by my collabs how many I've done. It's hard, you know, when everybody's, you know, when everybody has tunnel vision and they're doing their own thing, they don't see everything around. So maybe, you know, we're just the new type of YouTubers.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
thank you guys. That was fun.
hey, thank you for being on. We really appreciate it.
Definitely.
I really enjoyed the conversations.
Yeah, if you guys want to check out any of my stuff, just Google Quantum Kitty. Literally have stuff all over the internet. My main platform is YouTube. My second main platform is Instagram. Everything else I could care less, because I can't put so much attention to all the platforms, especially with doing art, as you guys know.
Right. Yeah, and I agree. It's really hard to keep up with all the different platforms. So,
Yeah.
but I'll definitely put the links in the description. You know, when we,
Yeah, definitely. And send me your YouTube channels. why I don't really know what your YouTube channel is, but if you want to hit me up in the DMs and just send it to me,
Absolutely, I could do that.
definitely.
But I'll say it anyways for the people that are going to watch this, because I usually always say it before we sign off. It's the Eye of Phi, all just one word.
Word.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's a great conversation.
Thank you.
Hopefully we can have another one sometime. Before we sign off, I'll also say next week we're going to have Evan Carmichael on. So anyone that's watching this, if they're interested in watching that, that'll be the next episode we put up after this one.
Oh, yeah. That's right around the corner.
Absolutely. That's next week.
All right. Well, peace out, everyone.